bruh, bruh, bruh. Hey kids, remember when you used to wake up early for Saturday morning cartoons and your biggest worries in life were whether or not the princess was in this or another castle? Let's go back there, because it's Throwback Thursday. Well, hey there everybody. It is time to take a look at another vintage game, it being another Throwback Thursday and whatnot. And today we're going to take a look at the one, the only Captain America and the Avengers. And I already lied to you because it is neither one nor only. This is one of many games called Captain America and the Avengers, all of them made by Data East, and most of them related. So, yeah, it's kind of a mishmashy mess when you start barking up this tree, and the really fun part is that if you were to do some web-based research, let's say that you're trying to brush up on things and make sure you are giving correct information on your YouTube channel, and you go looking for information on the NES version of this game, and everybody's going to be like, don't you mean the Super Nintendo version? And honestly, they're right. You do mean the Super Nintendo version, but no, that's not the one we're reviewing here today, although it is a superior game for reasons that we will talk about. But yeah, the arcade game came out first. It was beloved. People liked it a lot. Then came the SNES version and the Genesis version at the same time as the NES version, or like within a year, they all came out. And yeah, the SNES version and the Genesis version are basically ports of the arcade game, more or less. I mean, the obvious differences and whatnot, but like, we're not here to split those particular hairs. The hair that like absolutely must be split is the one about the NES version, because it's like kind of, sort of, loosely based on the arcade version, kind of. But, like, there were a lot of things they couldn't do, and so you get this NES version that's kind of a different animal, even though it has the exact same title as all the other Captain America and the Avengers', and the fact that they all were released by Data East, or Data East, depending on whether or not you are correct in the way that you say things. Anyway, so I don't have strong opinions, but I do love Data from Star Trek, and so I do tend to say Data, unless I'm talking about data that makes me angry, in which case I say lore. Anyway, regardless, that's a little nothing for nobody. So, yeah, this version is kind of, but not really, but not so much that you'd notice, but also yes, but also no, based on the arcade version. So, does that make sense? No? Well, of course not. Because you kind of have to look at the two side by side. Here's what they have in common. They're both beat-em-up type games in which you can play different Avengers. And, you know, that kind of brings to mind later titles like, you know, the Marvel Ultimate Alliance type games. And the arcade game is definitely the granddaddy of that. And the NES version is, I don't know, the weird member of the family that everybody forgets about. Because they're, you know, weird and single and nobody ever remembers that they're around. Anyway, yeah, that member of the family. I don't know how dysfunctional your family is, but it's got to be pretty dysfunctional to have a comparable member of the family to where this game fits in the family of Captain America and the Avengers is in the world of Data East games. Now, don't get me wrong. I will say from the beginning, it's not a bad game. Like, it's not. It's totally not a bad game. But, like, it depends on how familiar you are with the other games that share the same name. Because I remember the SNES version, and I thought, like, oh dang, it's, you know, Captain America. Hey, Captain America and the Avengers, it's a fun game. It's probably going to be very much like the SNES version, just the graphics are dumbed down. No. Like, I mean, yes, but also, no, not the same. So first off, first noticeable thing is that it really should be called Captain America and the Avenger, singular, because you can only play as one other Avenger. There are not that many Avengers who appear in this game. As playable characters, there are 2. There are references to other Avengers. Iron Man and Vision get knocked out in the very beginning of the game, which is fitting, I guess, because then it kind of explains why they're not in the game, but they are 100% playable in the SNES version of the game, which is a superior game. But remember, this one's not bad. We're not completely ragging on it. It's just the more you know about the other ones, the more this one pales in comparison. But also those other ones are on the next generation of consoles, and this one, like, you wouldn't really say that it pushed the boundaries of what the NES is capable of. I mean, granted, it does have some pretty impressive cutscenes, but aside from that, the gameplay is pretty, well, for lack of a better term, and to borrow a word from, the youths, it's kind of mid, It just is. So yeah, the fact that you only have 2 playable characters and that their gameplay styles are so very similar, it kind of just feels samey, and the sameness is pervasive in this game. So yeah, let's get into it. Iron Man and Vision get knocked out in the very beginning in a cutscene, and then you see Shredder from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles with the Infinity Gauntlet. Don't ask me why that's a thing, but it 100% is Shredder. I don't know if they're like, Thanos looks like Shredder, right? And I'm like racking my brain trying to think of, like, okay, in the Marvel Universe, who else has access to the Infinity Gauntlet, and how many of them look like Shredder? Yeah, I don't know. Yell at me in the comments if you're like, what kind of a nerd are you if you don't remember this deep cut of a supervillain? Anyway, my apologies. It's gonna be not a deep cut of a supervillain. It's just gonna be, someone super obvious. It's just gonna be like, oh, well, Anyway, so yeah, the bad guy's got the Infinity Gauntlet, and then Wasp comes on and is like, hey, you gotta go do a thing. And Wasp is like, not even really, like, she's not wearing her outfit, so they don't even really need to call her Wasp, but whatever. I mean, whatever. It is what it is. And she's not a playable character, so yeah, don't get your hopes too high when you see her. Anyway, so yeah, she tells you where to go and what to do, but you don't always have to go there or do exactly what she says. You do have limited choice, like extremely limited choice, but choice nonetheless. Usually it's between this one or that one. Which, yeah, that's not we can't put the choices matter tag on this game, but whatever. It's fine. So yeah, Wasp is like, oh no, Shredder's got the Infinity Gauntlet. You better go take out the Biodrome, or Technodrome. Technodrome. That's what it's called. Anyway, yeah, so you better go make that blow up, or whatever. And, so she tells you basically like, hey, you gotta shoot these things, and they got like gems in them, and one of them will let you exit the level. And indeed that is so. Like, it's hidden randomly in one of those things. Cool. Sorry, apologies. I will try and edit that out, but if I don't, bonus content, ooh, exclusive cough. Anyway, so regardless, the thing that drives me crazy is that even when you make your choices, the levels feel so samey. The first time I played the second level, I thought I accidentally chose the first level again, and it wasn't until the end of the level where I was like, oh, these platforms were slightly different in the other level, so this is in fact a different level. All right, it felt the same until the very end. Like, sometimes the levels are a different color, but the layout is almost identical. Like, to an obnoxious degree, it is the same. And so you really feel samey. And, the two characters that you can play, because you've got Captain America and Hawkeye, and that's it. And their two powers, throwing that shield and shooting arrows, are very similar and operate similarly in the level. It's just Hawkeye can shoot straight up, and Captain America is a little more powerful. That's it. This is the only difference. Other than that, they are exactly the same and play exactly the same. So that's fun. Yeah, and you just go around, you hit those little orange bins floating in the sky, and you hit them as many times as you can, and they just spit out random nonsense that you don't even know what it is. It's like 5 stars, 3 stars, here's a diamond, and you're like, what? And then eventually it spits out the orb or the circle or whatever. You get that, and then you go. Then you go to the next level. That's it. That's all it is. And yeah, there's not a tremendous amount of variation here, and it feels like the same deal. Now, granted, there are things like there are hazards on the map, which, by the way, the map feels 100% stolen from Bionic Commando, except for it doesn't, like, you don't have to, like, have enough energy to get from one place to another. Yeah, so that is different because Bionic Commando is way more strategy and where you go and what you do. And, Captain America and the Avengers is way more, your choice really doesn't matter because it's kind of the same level again anyway. Except for you run into these things, there are these little hazards, and then you get a weird level with kind of a boss or a whole bunch of dudes that you have to kill, and it's all like checkerboard pattern and weird looking. Who knows? But it's a different type of gameplay. Also, there are bosses. You will see none of those in the gameplay footage. My apologies. There's only so much that I could do. Anyway, but yeah, like, the game is kind of samey and whatnot, but it is a beat 'em up, and there is a, like, 2-person, like, 2D fighting thing, but you have to play as 2 players, and it's not, like, that effective. I got no footage of it, so meh. But the main game is also kind of meh, but not like a hard meh, not like a meh that is angry or anything. It's just a meh that is like, yeah, I'm okay with the fact that I own this, but, like, it's not my favorite game. I did enjoy parts of it, sure, but it's not my favorite. Yeah. Anyway, so let's give it a final score. Final score, we're going 7 out of a possible 10 Krangs with that Infinity Gauntlet. And sometimes I take way too long to create an image for things for this channel. Like, you never know the things that I take stupid amounts of time on. And getting that Krang took way more time than I care to admit. I asked AI to do it, and it kept giving me Ninja Turtles with Infinity Gauntlets, like weird Leonardos with 12 fingers and whatnot. And I'm like, okay, never mind. I'll do this myself. Anyway, so yeah, that's it. You get your Krangs with the Infinity Gauntlet. All right, people, thanks for being here for this one. I will see you in the next one. Okay, bye.